Why did you turn away from Jesus? This is a question I get asked a lot, understandably so, as I was a Christian, evangelical Christian, Pentecostal, and now I'm a witch. And a lot of Christians do ask this. And I know immediately that the person asking is Christian, because why else would they ask? Why did you turn away from Jesus? Now, I don't take offense to this question, but I know where it's coming from because it's a question I asked many people as well. When I was in the church, it's one of the first ones, if I'm like, what, you don't go to church anymore? Why did you turn away from Jesus? And it comes from two parts, usually in my experience. One side of me would be genuinely curious, like, how? I don't understand, because this is all I know. This is what I believe. I don't understand how someone could leave it. So it's like curiosity, like, have you been tricked? And the other half is kind of like this curiosity to bite back. And I'm not saying this is what the person who commented was doing, but it's what I would have done, right? So this is where the person then tells you you say, why did you turn away from Jesus? They tell you their story that usually involves trauma. In my case, it was getting kicked out of the church, having the whole community leave behind. And then straight up, we get that wasn't Jesus. That was the church. That was people that hurt you, not Jesus, not God. And to that I say, A, the people of the church and the church itself is God. You can't remove the two. B, the people also hurt me. There was a lot of hurt there, but so did God and Jesus. But how? They are just full of love. Well, they're not. God in the Bible is wrathful, judgmental, very strict. There is no unconditional love from God. Zero. It is not unconditional. It is full of conditions, and it is part of that like free will complex that comes up with it, right? You have free will, but if you don't love me in this specific way, doing these specific things, then sorry, you chose wrong, right? You've got two choices. You can choose either, but one of them is wrong. That's not a choice. There is no choice there. So that isn't actually free will. So there's that aspect with God. I have a lot of issues with the concept of God, the concept of evil, the concept of an all-knowing, all-loving, creative God that just is not the case. I do not see the evidence of that. When I was in the church, I questioned constantly. Out of the church, I question even more, because I do not see the evidence of a benevolent being in the way that the Christian God is depicted. He killed more people in the Bible than anyone else. Why do we have things like bone cancer in children, right? But people in the church are praying for a car park. Like it doesn't logically make sense. That's the God aspect. Then we have the other side of the Trinity, which is Jesus, and then we also have the Holy Spirit, which everyone just convening. Why did you turn away from the Holy Spirit? No one says that. Anyway, with Jesus specifically, love the concept of Jesus as a divine being an extreme, like leftist, politically, anti-capitalist, right? Absolutely hated the wealth hoarders, hated the tax collectors, hated the church, right? He was a radical leftist. I love it. He was so accepting of all sorts of different people. But that is not the Jesus that we see in the church. That is not the Jesus that is preached about and taught about. Instead, we get a lot of the hate and the restrictions and stuff like that. So that is, I guess, more a critique on the way Jesus is portrayed in modern day evangelical Pentecostal churches, especially the Assemblies of God church that I grew up in. Also, despite being super welcoming and accepting, I found the church was not like that, right? There was this facade of that, but it really wasn't. I watched homeless people get dragged out of the church, right? We're supposed to be helping them. Why are we not helping them? You know, or we'll give you food if you sit through the entire sermon and promise to give your heart to God. That's coercion. Like, you can't get away with that. The other aspect of all of this is I didn't turn away from Jesus. I didn't. I tried desperately with all of my entire heart and being to hold on to Jesus, hold on to the concept, the belief, the love that I thought I felt. I gave my heart to Jesus so many freaking times. I lost count. Baptized multiple times. Like, I was desperate. And I think when we're that desperate, we convince ourselves of a lot of things. That desperate for connection, for meaning, for purpose, for forgiveness, for being human. That desperate, I wanted to cling on to that with everything. That was my hope. But I literally got nothing back. Nothing. All I got was life falling apart, kicked out of the church, ostracized, left alone. I mean, I've never had more pain than when I was in the church. There was self-harm, mental health issues. Like, I've never been as sad, horrible, and wanting to leave this earth than when I was in the church. So I think the desperation and desperate for something to come back and just never, ever having that response, praying in my darkest moment for something to stop, and it didn't stop. Like, the trauma that I got from believing in that hurt a lot. So I didn't turn away from Jesus. I felt that Jesus turned away from me. And when I left the church, when we got kicked out of the church, that experience that I'd have of the Holy Spirit and that feeling, that visceral body feeling, it didn't actually just exist in the church. Suddenly I was getting it at a music concert, because it was a live music thing and a collective people thing. I get it in the theater. I get it when I see a stage show. Like, it wasn't the Holy Spirit. Who knew? It was an orchestrated feeling and sensation in my body of group singing, group people doing the same thing, right? Everyone's sort of along the same, right? The feeling in there with the air conditioning dropping lower, the chords on the guitar and the piano and all of that comes together for a pretty little frisson feeling in your body that is then told to be the Holy Spirit. So I didn't turn away from Jesus. He turned from me. End scene.